Today we are going to be doing a discussion on mini consoles, and I'm very happy to say that retro is here all over again. We're very happy that consoles have been coming out and that we are enjoying a renaissance or a comeback of the consoles that we started off with, that we grew up with. So for today, I'm just going to talk about a little bit of the consoles that I have in my possession and what I like about them and the games that are, some of the games that are in them. The mini console that basically started the whole trend off was the NES Classic. So the NES Classic came out in 2016, and a lot of us really grew up with NES games. A lot of them were actually included in this package right here. So games like Donkey Kong, Super Mario Brothers, Metroid, Legend of Zelda, other games like Kirby's Adventure. It had a great selection of games in it, like Pac-Man. Oh, one of my absolute favorites, Punch-Out! Except that it didn't have Mike Tyson in it. It had Mr. Dream. So, yeah, a little bit of an omission there. A forgivable omission because I'm not sure Nintendo had the license to have Mike Tyson in the collection anymore. So this was the thing. This was the mini console that kicked everything off, and everybody was dying to have it. Nintendo was very scrupulous about its announcement. They said that it was only going to be out for a limited time, and they made good on their word. They made sure that it was out in limited quantities. Everybody was scrambling to go to the GameStops, which is a game store here in the United States. So this one had 30 classic games inside of it. It was a really good value for money. It had amazing games inside of it. Everybody had a great time with it, and it was a very durable little machine too. If you can have a look at that, it didn't have the slot. It was small enough that you couldn't slot in an actual NES cartridge into it. But it's it's a little sacrifice that people were willing to make to play all the classic games that they had when they were growing up. That was quickly followed up when Nintendo realized how big of a deal the NES Classic was. That was quickly followed up by the Super Nintendo Classic Edition right here, which had a banger set of games inside of it too, like Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario World. Of particular interest in this collection was a really hard to find RPG, a game called Earthbound. Earthbound is actually included in this collection, and you didn't have to go to unofficial sources anymore for you to be able to play Earthbound. Earthbound specifically had an anti-cheat feature that if you were running an unlicensed copy of Earthbound, it made the enemies really hard to fight. It made the enemies like plentiful, and they would show up. It would make the game very frustrating for the person who was playing the unofficial copy of it. This is an official licensed way to play Earthbound in the form that allowed it to be played or as it originally was. Another game that was inside of this collection that would be of particular interest to RPG players would be Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, another hard to find game. A lot of collectors here in the United States were really crazy over that game because it had Mario in turn-based fighting and an RPG format, something that was to the best of my knowledge had not been attempted before. And this game this console had it also. A lot of great games in here like Secret of Mana, Star Fox, Kirby's Dream Course, and it's really a banger list of games. Another solid entry in the console mini console saga. If people are at all interested, it was also one of those things that people had to scramble in different stores to be able to find, to really look for. It's very much worth it. I guess one thing about mini consoles is the value that they present to people as when they buy it. Like, you don't have to look for all of these rare games anymore because those games were definitely not in production anymore by the time that these mini consoles came out. And this gave gamers a legitimate way for them to be able to play the games that they've been looking for the longest time. But now we come to a not very bright time of the mini console saga. When it came out, I guess when the NES and the SNES Mini came out, Sony decided to throw their hat into the ring in the hopes of being able to compete. Historically, they won the battle. Sony was the one who won the battle, the console war between Nintendo and Sega. Some would say that was a hard fought battle, and then the brand new guy, the usurper, came in, Sony, and won everything, took everything from everybody. Sad to say that didn't happen this time. The PlayStation Classic came out in 2018, from my recollection, and a lot of people were actually very excited because of the announcement of the PlayStation Classic. But the reality when it came out was very different from the anticipation. 20 games came preloaded on it. A lot of them were great, like Metal Gear Solid was there, Final Fantasy VII was there, the Resident Evil Director's Cut was there. Amazing games. But there were some other questionable choices of games that were included in there, like Cool Borders 2. I mean, I'm absolutely sure a lot of people love Cool Borders 2, but not to the same level as Final Fantasy VII. Other games like Ridge Racer Type 4. I know that there are a lot of racing fanatics there, and they certainly would have preferred something like Gran Turismo or Gran Turismo 2 to have been included as a racing game. Sad to say, it was not. They had Ridge Racer Type 4. Battle Arena Toshinden, one of my absolute most favorite fighting games ever. The very first game that I ever played in Green Hills, San Juan, in the PlayStation. When I saw the PlayStation 1 come out, Battle Arena Toshinden was there. I played the heck out of that game. I was so happy to have it here. But I'm absolutely sure some people are thinking, why the heck would a game like this be here? Tekken 3 is also in here, and that is one of the big things. The PlayStation Classic came out with 9 games that were PAL, P-A-L, which came out in 50 megahertz frequency, which made it about 17% slower than NTSC games. So if you're a regular gamer, it's not something that you would notice. It's not something that you would feel while you were playing, but fighting game fanatics who are crazy over Tekken 3 would definitely feel the difference. So that's one of the things that really caused people to say, this is not really something that I'm willing to plunk down $99 for. They pretty much let it, molder in the shelves at $99, all the way to the time that it went down in price to $25, $25 a piece, and there were pallets of it sitting around in Best Buy. And later on, when people realized that this is still a very good machine, moddable, lots of play that you can put into it, heck, you can even put the entirety of the PlayStation 1 library into it, they started snapping it up again. Nowadays in Amazon, I think it's going for almost as high as its initial release at $99 from my last check. I think $80 to $99. The value of it was not realized during its initial release, but people certainly value it now. I think it's a collector's item. People are looking around for it all over again. PlayStation, Sony was actually likely limited themselves because of licensing, because of the fact that they only owned a certain number of IPs that they could put in here, and they were probably also limited by regional restrictions. That's also possibly one of the reasons why they could only put in the PAL games rather than the NTSC versions into their PlayStation Classic. Some of them have a hard time with the idea of people modifying the things that they already own. Nintendo being a very egregious offender in that if they wanted to, if people bought something of theirs and they said that they wanted to add a few more games that they wanted into it, Sony would very much frown on the very concept of the thing that they sold to a person being changed for that person's tastes. And I guess that's the limitation that a lot of people have run into. Not that it's let them stop them, but people do want to improve on the thing that they sometimes have bought already. This came out almost at the exact time that the PlayStation 1 Classic came out too. The Neo Geo Mini came out at almost the exact same time that the PlayStation 1 Classic, and almost everybody had the PlayStation 1. Not everybody had the Neo Geo. Everybody looked at the Neo Geo and said, wow, those graphics are arcade quality already. Those are amazing. But looking at the price point back then, that was way too expensive for a lot of people to spend money on. And now, when at the same time that this came head to head with the PlayStation Classic Mini, I think a lot of people decided this is something that I'd want to spend money on. It has a lot of 40 Neo Geo games inside of it, like Metal Slug, Magician Lord, also games like the King of Fighters. My brother is a huge King of Fighters fanatic. If anybody's a fighting game fanatic, this is a great machine to have. It has tons of great fighting games. Last Blade, if I remember correctly, and also Samurai Showdown. Nice thing about this one is that you can use this as a portable gaming machine like that, or you can hook it up to a television and play your Neo Geo games on the big screen as well. The other machines like the NES, SNES, Mini, the PlayStation Classic, they are all dedicated living room machines. So you had to, unless of course you were willing to spend on a mini monitor to bring around with you and a battery pack. But this one had the portability form factor as well as being able to be played on the large screen as well. So this was a very good investment. This was a very good machine to buy. And sad to say, I guess that's one of the reasons why it really killed the PlayStation 1 Classic when it first came out. A really good machine, like a lot of people would say, this is a banger all around. If you can find it, the Neo Geo Mini International. I'm not sure about the 2-player pack anymore, but the Neo Geo Mini International version is still available on Amazon for relatively cheap. From what I remember, it was still going for $60 from last I checked. So it might be a good investment for anybody who's looking around for a Neo Geo mini console right now. About the only criticism that I can levy on them is I just wish, you know, that they would come out with something a lot like their original AES, if I remember that's what it's called, the actual console itself. But I can't really fault them for doing this, because this is very good for the fact that if you wanted it to bring it along with you wherever you wanted to go, you could. If you were a Neo Geo fan, can't go wrong with the Neo Geo Mini. Last is the Sega Genesis Mini. The Sega Genesis Mini was Sega Genesis's Sega's entry into the mini console arena, and it had very good selection of games as well. This one had no portability form factor. It was very much a living room console, but it had 40 classic games and 2 bonus titles inside of it. The classic games inside of here are some of my favorites, like Phantasy Star 4. There's also the unusual selections like, you know, Echo the Dolphin, Mickey Mouse Castle of Illusion, and some really good selections as well. Like one of my absolute favorites here was, you know, the perennial classic Altered Beast. I love Altered Beast. It was one of the first games that I ever played on the Sega Genesis Mini, and really a good choice of games right there. Value for money, really good. I think you're going to have a fun time with any single console mini that you decide to buy. The Sega Genesis Mini is actually capable of running RetroArch. Alright, spoilers. No, not spoilers. Caveat. For the people, we do not endorse or condone the playing of unlicensed and unofficial software. We are very much supporters of official and licensed software. We're just saying that it is possible for these mini consoles to run unlicensed software as well, to suit your tastes. If you own the cartridge and you wanted it to be part of the lineup, you definitely could make it happen. Nintendo is very tight when it comes to the ownership of its machines, to the point that sometimes they even think that the machines that they've already sold to somebody else is still their property. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's the way they think, maybe not. I know Sega has been very, very supportive of the of the expansion, shall we say, community, in the way that even Sonic the Hedgehog has been given unofficial levels by certain modders, and Sega went, hey, that is so cool, we're gonna hire you guys to make an official Sega game and as an official Sonic game. Sega is cool that way. Nintendo isn't.
What Nintendo?
The only bad thing about these mini consoles is that they're in such short supply. There's sometimes some of them are so hard to find nowadays. It's going to be a little hard to find some of them. You know, who knows? Maybe the companies would listen to how much us retro gamers love our mini consoles, and maybe they'll produce more. One can only hope. So that is my little presentation of the mini consoles for this episode, and I hope everybody has a great day. Bye!